The National Socialist movement that swept through Germany beginning in the 1920s was not simply isolated to Europe. And there were those, even in the United States, even in the land of the free and the home of the brave, that believed in the ideas of Nazism.
Among those believers was an enigmatic Hollywood screenwriter and mystic named William Dudley Pelley.
In January of 1933, when Hitler rose to the chancellery in Germany, Pelley looked upon the figure of Hitler and determined that he wanted to remake himself into a kind of American National Socialist leader.
Impressed with Hitler's Aryan-oriented political philosophy and rabidly anti-communist stance, Pelley formed what he called the Silver Legion and modeled the group after the Nazi brown shirts.
Pelley instructed his members to dress in paramilitary garb, to carry weapons with them. The Silver Shirts had about 15,000 members, which is not an inconsiderable number of people. A real fear that the federal government had was that those 15,000 members could serve as a kind of fifth column during the Second World War. So the government went after Pelley on charges of sedition, and he was actually sent to jail for the duration of the Second World War.
But the imprisonment of Pelley did not stop the rise of Nazis in America. In 1936, the German-American Bund was created. Led by a German-born American citizen by the name of Fritz Kuhn, the Bund claimed to merge American and German National Socialist interests into one ideology. It was also secretly supported by Hitler's deputy Führer, Rudolf Hess.
Picture it, if you will, Madison Square Garden, New York City, February 20th, 1939. 20,000 followers of Nazism gathered under that roof for that one night to listen to a message from Fritz Kuhn. Fritz Kuhn stood up and echoed all of the sentiments that were expressed by Adolf Hitler in his political speeches.
The German-American Bund is an American organization. With Alaskan fakes our rights. It demands our rights to be American citizens.
During the war, American Nazis went underground, fearful of reprisals and persecution. But after Hitler's defeat in 1945, the U.S. began to fear an even greater threat from its former ally, the Soviet Union.
The American politicians really thought that we would have to fight Russia, and they had no intelligence on Russia.
What happens as the Cold War gets colder is that efforts shift from trying to track down criminals of the last war to finding German intelligence officers who can provide political and military information about the next war. And they are not that interested in the backgrounds of these German intelligence officers. There was a competition between the Soviets and the Americans over who could acquire more German military technology. This led to what was known as Operation Paperclip, and some of the unrepentant Nazis who found their way to the United States came as a result of the knowledge they had of Nazi technology.
There were a lot of Germans who just wanted to save their skin. And if they were tried for what they had really done during World War II, they would be listed as war criminals.
President Truman had a ruling that no former Nazis that were deeply involved in the political ideology of National Socialism could be recruited through Operation Paperclip. And the way that the government responded to that was we simply created ulterior identities to some of the worst offenders.
The most famous are Arthur Rudolph and Werner von Braun, who both played roles ultimately in unprecedented developments in military technology.
I myself and everybody you see here have decided to go west.
Werner von Braun had been the former technical director of the Peenemünde Rocket Research Center, the development site of the V-2 rocket that devastated London. But after the war, The U.S. government hired him to further develop that technology for use on a new frontier.
He began working for NASA and was central in the development of the Pershing missile and the Saturn V rocket.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
The American nation needed every tool in the toolbox to be able to fight off communism. We needed every level of expertise, we needed every new weapon, and we had to turn to our former Nazi enemies and bring them to the United States to help us compete against the Soviets during the Cold War. In the chapter about Nazis in America's Book of Secrets, there would have to be some text indicating that the United States government embraced Nazis, and that the United States government also covered up the way that we embraced Nazis.
They routinely were deleting all documents showing that the government had assisted their entry. And I caught them at it.
The government's secret scheme to bring German scientists to the U.S. was exposed in 1982, nearly 4 decades after the war. Former Office of Special Investigations attorney John Loftus appeared on national television to reveal that intelligence officials had not only secretly smuggled some of the most notorious war criminals to America, but also that the Department of Justice had provided them with safe haven from prosecution.
Officially, my mission was to find where there might be Nazis hiding in America. But I had a secret mission. On the sly, my job was to try and find out who had protected Nazi war criminals after World War II.
After searching through hidden intelligence files, Loftus claimed to have found proof that linked upper-level U.S. officials to expunged Nazi war criminal records. He even asserted that the paper trail went all the way up to the office of OSS Chief Allen Dulles.
The Assistant Attorney General told me, "I don't want to hear this stuff you're telling me." And I sort of became notorious with the intelligence community. The Justice Department was asked by Congress to do the right thing, and the Justice Department betrayed Congress. They betrayed the American people, and they continued the Nazi cover-up. I knew that my agency simply would not participate in any hunt for Nazis that would expose American politicians. So I quit the Justice Department in disgust and testified before Congress as a whistleblower.
Did the American government's efforts to get Nazi intelligence after the war really sow the seeds for the white supremacy hate groups we see today?